Hello and welcome back to my channel, and in today's tutorial we'll be learning how to draft a petal sleeve or a tulip sleeve as some people call it. Now there are two ways you can achieve a petal sleeve, and one of them is by using two identical sleeve patterns like what I've done here. Look, the patterns will be cut the same way, they are just the same. So the next thing you ask yourself, how much do I want to open? What I mean by that is when you are drafting a petal sleeve, you are going to have one sleeve over the other, and usually forms like a V-shaped opening at the hem part. Okay, so another thing is that you're also going to determine where you want your sleeve, the lap, to meet. Where do you want it to meet? So these are the two things that you have to determine. So now I'm going to keep this sleeve up here. We're going to start working with this sleeve. Now we're working on my first sleeve, and spread it up open like this. Now from my midpoint here, let me put a mark there so that it don't get confused. It's going to be a guide for all the alterations that we are going to be making. So from this midpoint here, I'll just measure, let's say 4.5. I'll put a mark there. First one, you can see. So I put my mark on both of them. Remember what I measured is 4.5. Okay, let's continue. This is a guide I want to use when I'm creating my opening. So you can understand what the start of this mark, you now determine how much you want to open. Is it 3 inches? Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it 6? Depending on what you want to create. Next, I'll go ahead to determine how far over the head I want this lap to start from this our cap head region. And in my own case, I want mine to start. Okay, I have 3 inches here, and I'll do it on both sides. I'll come over to this side too and measure 3 inches and put a mark on it. Next thing is I have to indicate my midpoint of, starting from this our midpoint line. Know that this is your up midpoint and this is the down part. I'll also determine at the bottom part, at the hem part, and determine how much apart I want the curve to be. So from my down midpoint here, I'll measure 2.5. Starting from this midpoint, I measure 2.5 to this right side. I mark it, and also on the left side, I measure 2.5. I mark it. Next thing I'll do is to use my curve and try to connect this point. Now you can either connect this point from this right side, this point, this and this, or you start by connecting this and this. Is up to you. So I'll use my curve now. I'll start connecting. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm loving this shape, so I'll connect it like so. That, and then I'll blend this point. So having done this now, we don't need this part. I'll do now is to cut out this curve, and that means we have gotten our back pattern for our sleeve. This is what we have. If you want to close it, this is just what we have. This is our back, so we'll keep it aside and we'll grab this other sleeve. Now we're going to plot the same thing, and remember what we did is to determine our midpoint line. We mark it down and we'll put a notch at the upper and the down part, and from this mid upper part I measure 3 inches on my right side and I put a notch on it, and I also measure 3 inches on the left side. I mark it. Now to determine how far, how open I want it to be, I measured 4.5 inches down and I mark it down. Next, on the hem part, I measure 2.5 on my right side, I mark it. I measure 2.5 on my left side, I mark it. Now, having gotten all these points, can you see them? Having gotten all these points as my grid line to my alteration, what next? I will remember that we have already marked out our back pattern. So on this other one, we are going to connect these 3 points together. Remember that on the first one we drafted, we connected the front part to be able to get the back pattern. Now we're going to connect the back part to be able to get the front pattern. Let's do it. We don't need this one anymore. We cut out. And now we have our front, our back pattern. Now we place our patterns as how it should appear. Now remember that we mark out what we call our midpoint line. We have it on both patterns. So we have to make sure that now that they align. So what do? I place it across. You can't put it anyhow you want, okay? So I place this over this, making sure that the midpoint align together. If you place yours correctly, you should have something that look exactly like what you are looking at now. So all you have to do next is to place this pattern on your fabric and cut it out, adding your necessary seam allowances and notching your notches at the right places. And that's it, guys. So keeping our pattern aside, now let's have a look at our second option. Now our second method on how to draft a petal sleeve. Let's make use of this basic sleeve pattern block here. Just like what we did on the previous pattern, they are just similar. It's just I started by marking my midpoint line, and then I came down by 4.5 like I did on the previous one. And from my right side, I measured 3 inches, and I measured 3 inches on this side. Coming down to the hem part, I measured 2.5 apart, 2.5 on this other side. Now it's just the same thing with what we have done before. The only difference is that we are putting them all in one pattern now. So I will connect all the lines with my curve ruler. This is our back curve. I'll blend this place. This so is the back one, and this other one is the front curve. I hope the lines are not confusing you. So after curving out your front and your back lines like this, the next thing to do is to place this pattern on another pattern paper like this. Then trace it out with your tracing wheel, making sure that you identify your front and your back line. You trace it out, trace all the sides correctly, and then you trace for the front and trace all the sides too. Then after tracing, you add your necessary seam allowances where necessary, okay? And then you cut out one after the other, and it will still give you the same thing we have here. You go ahead and label it. So that's it, guys. We have come to the end of today's tutorial. I hope this tutorial has been very helpful to you. Don't forget to give me a giant thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe and turn on post notification bell so you will be notified each time I post a new video. Okay, until we meet again, see you in my next video. Bye bye.